welcome to our new episode of our podcast. Steve, today's topic is about Dubai, of course, and the health insurance industry. So, Steve, welcome and tell me a bit about yourself.
Thanks, Chris. My name's Stephen McLaren. I'm a Director of Corporate Solutions in 7 insurance brokers in Dubai. Been here quite a long time, about 18 years. It's flown by.
Wow.
Originally from Scotland, born in Glasgow and brought up in a place called Dunblane, which a lot of people know through tennis and Andy Murray. Came out here originally. Before coming out here, I was a wealth planner, an independent financial advisor, as they called it in the UK. I did that for a short time out here, and then realised that when Abu Dhabi made it mandatory for corporate medical insurance, I thought that's a real opportunity. And there weren't many people doing it. When I got involved, it was companies starting for the first time. My background's dealing with companies, so it wasn't something I was scared of and could quite easily transition into it.
Yeah.
A fair bit of administration involved in what I do, so I had to find a company to link with that was involved in it. And that's how I ended up joining my first company out here, dealing with purely group medical insurance and then a little bit of life and disability insurance for companies as well.
Yeah, and you've been doing that with this company since how many years?
7 insurance brokers is just coming up just over 2.5 years now.
2.5 years.
Again, time flies by.
And what's your passion on this in this job? Helping people?
I do like helping people, yeah. It's more of a consultant's role and get me the cheapest price, which is what people understand.
Yeah.
They understand the price of something but the value of nothing. And I think health insurance, it's quite hard to lift the bonnet up, to use that expression, and go, how does it actually work? And even when you get a table of benefits, which is a summary of the cover, which most people buy on the back of that, it's just giving a superficial level of what's actually under the bonnet. And it's more important to know.
But there, like say now, many competitors. One example, insurance market. So what would you recommend people who are looking for new insurance or from outside of the country? Should they go with a proper broker such as you, or just go on the online portal and just take any insurance?
I think it depends on the attitude of the person wanting to buy insurance. I mean, if you're looking at the cheapest price, something like insurancemarket.ie is a good starting point just for the purpose of getting an aggregator and seeing the difference in premium. But then we're just looking at price again. So if it's just a question of give me some insurance and I don't care what it is, just get me the cheapest, that's fine. If you want to know what's under the bonnet and more about how it actually works, then it's quite an important purchase for certain people. People that even come in here that have a clean bill of health and can buy as an individual, they'll still complete a medical application form. And that's fine, they'll go through and get that price. But if they actually claimed during that year with the vast majority of the insurers, they think they've got insurance, but when they come to renewal, then the premium could be hiked up considerably. And that could be even a simple example as a maternity, a wife or a lady obviously taking it out. They have maternity, and the following year they're hit with this big increase in premium. And that's not really insurance, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's where the issue is now. People just look at the price, they just sign for something. Even myself, of course, I compare insurances, but in the end, do you really know the small writing? Do you look into the contract? And as you say, if you have some operation or something, will they pay for it? And that's, I think, a good part where your company comes into, takes a good role into it to give the client the really good insurance, and they're paying something for that.
Yeah, and you don't even necessarily have to pay a lot more, Chris. It's just knowing what you're going for. I mean, anyone that does look at that summary, which is called a table of benefits, some companies call it, like Daman, the biggest insurer, call it a statement of benefits. It will never tell you how it's underwritten the following year. It'll never tell you how it's renewed. And that's the important stuff. Well, I think it's certainly important. Particularly I gave the example earlier about if there was a maternity. But if you have a policy and you but you have cancer, then you're in that journey, hopefully still staying alive, where that could go on, the treatment going on for 2-3 years or whatever it could take. And then you're paying a huge premium potentially the following year. So it is caveat emptor, buyer beware. If you just go cheap and you go on price without really understanding it, that's a risk that I think we need to highlight.
But why do people think sometimes if they go with the like an online portal, they can have it cheaper, and going with you with the insurance broker, a personal contact, they think it costs more. But for example, if they go on the online portal and they go with you, with one insurance, like from Allianz, for example, the price would be the same, or do you charge anything extra, or do you get commission from the insurance?
Yeah, most of the market is set up on a commission basis, brokerage, whatever you want to call it, and it's pretty much a standardized commission rate.
Okay.
Some large brokers may get a slightly market-derived income, which is slightly higher level, but broadly speaking, the premiums are the same. So there's not really a price point of view to concern themselves about that. And that's large schemes are a different animal and not really available in an online portal. And most small and medium schemes for companies aren't available yet either. And that will come. But individuals can look at, on an aggregator site. There's a good one out there called Sales Lab, which is under the company Top Insure. And that's very good. And a lot of brokers are using that. My company is involved in that heavily as well. So we can get price comparisons, looking at the different price.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most important things is how are they underwritten at renewal, and that's the bit that a comparison site won't do. None of them do it really.
What's that mean again? The renewal. So your insurance gets renewed, but the price will change.
Virtually all the time, prices people
Goes
have
up?
to be aware it's going to go up. So it's a thing called medical trend. That's just a fancy word. It's medical insurance premium inflation. And that's running at over 10% per year over the last 10 years. Yes, there was a little dip of increases during COVID because people weren't using medical insurance. They were more going down the telehealth route, if at all. And that tells you that there's ways of keeping costs down. But we have a market here where people are able to go and use, once they've got the insurance, to whatever medical facility their policy allows them to go to. So it's pretty easy to see a doctor here. And with ease of availability, people do go. And then, doctors are there to look after you, I hope, but also make money for the company they work with. So it's a money-making machine as well. And, we're in that market. So that's why, yes, medical insurance premiums, individuals should be aware they're going to go up every year. And most of them are going to go up if your claims have been quite high during that year. Could it be an accident? It could have been whatever. It might have been just for that year. But even then, if you're increased 100%, which is quite easily possible, the insurer will rarely bring that down the following year. So you're in that vicious cycle. And that's why there's no real loyalty or need to stay with any one insurer. I think it is move around if you need to, providing you can. But if you've got a major condition, then you're tied in. That's why it's super important to get the foundations right and pick the right company.
And then you
if
stick
you
with
can
one
at the start.
Yeah.
And certain companies will look at your loyalty. If you've been there, 10 years and you start to claim, they'll go, well, they've not really milked it, shall we say, during the previous 10 years. This is a real case.
Okay, so they will give then
Depending on the insurer.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's again part of a broker's role, I think, to assess the stuff that your experience can bring that you won't really read in a book, even if you studied it. And it certainly won't be shown again on a table of benefits. So that's the added value that a broker should provide to their clients, be that individual, small or large.
And is the insurance, the health insurance, is it mandatory in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah?
Yeah, interesting question, Chris. It started off in 2006 in Abu Dhabi. Dubai brought it in, and it sort of ramped it up depending on larger companies, then smaller. It was over a period of months to get it going. So it's mandatory in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is different, that you have to insure the employee. If they have a spouse that's not working elsewhere, you have to insure him or her as well, and up to 3 children under the age of 18. So it's more robust, shall we say, and more onerous in Abu Dhabi. Dubai is the employee has to be covered, whoever's issuing the visa. And on the 1st of January, I was on Dubai Eye recently just asking me what's happening, and I still haven't seen the information. It's printed that we're going to get the rest of the Northern Emirates to bring in mandatory health insurance on the 1st of January next year. Watch this space. The devil's in the detail. I would anticipate that being more like the Dubai model and not making sure that families are covered under the cost of their employer as well. So it was always the intention to make it mandatory. Saudi's mandatory and has been for just a little bit less than Abu Dhabi. Sorry, a little bit less time than Abu Dhabi. I think it will go out through the Middle East.
So if you, for example, you're new to Dubai and you move to Abu Dhabi and you want the visa, of course, you would have to do the medical insurance to get the visa.
Absolutely right.
Exactly.
It's a different policy that's required. There's different laws that the Ministry of Health do. Department of Health, rather, down in Abu Dhabi, used to be called HAD, which I won't explain, compared to what they do in Dubai. So we are in two different emirates, two different laws. Broadly speaking, they're about insuring people, the same, but the level of cover required is different in Abu Dhabi compared to Dubai.
And what's the starting price for the insurance? Starts at actually about 400-600 dirham a year, correct?
I mean, when it was brought in Dubai, and to a good extent Abu Dhabi, it was a transfer from the healthcare card that a lot of employees, particularly blue collar, but a lot of employees had it. And the government was funding that and subsidising it. So it was more about getting the private sector at an affordable level to transfer that on into an insurance model. And the premiums are 550, 650. So in Dubai, it's those earning less than 4,000 dirhams per month can get into that level of cover. The area or the network that these members can go to will not be the King's College or the Mediclinic. So it's a lower level of accessibility of where they can go. And they have a bit more co-insurance to get the premium down to that level. Because if you think about it, that's not a lot. And then if you go up, depending on, it's very much age-related and the position of health, if you're applying as an individual or a small company, can easily go up to $10,000 and more. Dollars, I changed that to there.
Yeah, but that's the highest premium. Okay, but for good insurance, you can also have one, say, 2,000-3,000 euro a year, correct?
Totally depends on your age.
Yeah.
So if you're a 50-year-old compared to a 20-year-old, you're off the top of my head easily 3 times the cost.
Yeah.
And that's just the base, the book, what you call book-rated price. If there's something wrong with you, and that could be something like high blood pressure, diabetes, as many people have now, then you're in a situation where if you're getting underwritten as an individual, then you're typically going to be charged more on your premium because the insurer, you need to remember, is trying to make money out of you. They're not a charity. They're trying to make money. So if there's anything ongoing existing with you, and even ladies that come here, I'm dealing with one that's, I get quite a lot of referrals where she's moving from the UK, and she's pregnant at the moment, and she's finding out that it's not an easy transition because she's either going to have to pay a lot of money, and it could be easy 100,000 dirhams because of the risk of a complication of maternity, or take the risk that she's not covered. And that's a dilemma that a lot of people, particularly from example, the UK, will be unaware until they've made that plan that they're moving here. They don't start, and I appreciate medical insurance is not an exciting subject to where, you know, what house are you going to live in? But people make that decision typically too late.
But does the employee or the employer cover the insurance if it becomes mandatory?
If you're the employer, it's the employer that covers it on behalf of the employee. The smaller the company.
But they only have to give the basic insurance out.
They only have to, but then you're down to what do you want to provide for perhaps yourself. You might be in the scheme also, compared to, you know, what their expectations of the employees are. You know, I would like to have access to some better hospitals and clinics if it's required. Ideally, you know, don't go and see a doctor. But, you know, a lot of people do, particularly when they come here at first, because they have availability to whatever network they're given to go and see a doctor. And it's quite easy with most insurers to get a second and then a third opinion if you wanted.
But do you think the system, or you compare Europe, or well, I'm born and raised in Germany, I've also lived in the UK for 4 years, or you compare the system in the UAE compared to Europe and USA, what system is better? In Germany, of course, you have mandatory, you have the insurance. If you're self-employed, you have to pay privately. If you're working for a company, the company will pay for it. If you're out of job, the government will pay for it. So you're always covered in the end. If you don't have insurance, you need insurance. So what system would you think it's a good system for?
I think if you look at throughout the world, I don't think there's a system that's working exceptionally well anywhere because of the pressures of the costs escalating all the time. You know, the UK, you know, the envy of the world is what we're told in the UK, the National Health Service. But people can't see doctors at the moment. It's breaking at the seams. There's a lot of
waiting
different
hours
issue,
and day,
but there's a lot of immigrants coming in, a lot of people coming to the UK that are putting pressure on the systems. It's happening in Ireland. So the old model of the National Health Service, I don't think you can just keep chucking money at it or putting allocations to it. The internal conversations I hear is that perhaps the management needs to be addressed, and there's a lot of misuse of money within any healthcare system, and that's the case in anywhere in the world. The pure insurance model is a good one in many respects, as long as the healthcare facilities aren't looking at what people are covered for and maximising, misusing the cover. So there's a lot of fraud, misuse, abuse, whatever word you want to put it in most healthcare systems. And my concern with most of them is it's got to stop. You know, can we ever change it? It's a difficult conundrum. It's a vicious cycle. So the insurance, if the insurance premiums kept pretty consistent, we'd all be fairly happy. But when we've got a situation where medical inflation is 10% a year increasing, I think we have to look at alternative mediums to try and reduce the cost. And one of those could be telehealth, that's quite often built into a medical insurance premium. You don't have to go and see a doctor in a lot of the occasions. A fair bit of it can be dealt with over the phone or videos nowadays, and they can actually now prescribe as well for you. So there's ways of trying to find the best way of using the insurance that you have if you're in the insurance model. Ideally, we've got a little bit of a hybrid here that if you're in a road traffic accident here, then you will be taken to Rashid Hospital, which is, you know, by all accounts, a very good reputation. A lot of good surgeons and doctors there. So we have what we need when it's some emergency happens. And this country is really expanding. You know, we are getting a lot more healthcare facilities coming in. We just have to balance it out that they're not here purely to make money. And, you know, duty of care is importantly kept as well.
Yeah, if you compare, for example, in Germany, when you're ill, you just go to the doctors and you need this yellow paper to give to your employee. This is actually mandatory, like after three days. So in the end, they don't need to go to the doctors, but they don't want to work, so they just go to the doctor, and it's like a holiday for them. So they just get the doctor say, okay, how long you want to stay ill? Say 1 or 2 weeks, and then he doesn't go to work. He's not allowed to work. So these people are using the system, and that's what you just mentioned. That's why all the expenses are going up, and all the doctors are full. There's not enough doctors. So is it a similar system in the UK? And would you think that system would be good in the UAE, that if you go to the doctors, you get this paper and then you're not allowed to work because you're ill?
We have that still at the moment here. Yeah, we have that where you need a sick note from the Dubai Health Authority in Dubai, if we take that.
Okay.
And that's, you know, employers are obliged to enforce that and say you need to get a sick note. So yes, it's a difficult model to try and get it right, because people need to go, they're actually sick, and often they need to actually physically go to a doctor and get a sick note. Whereas if that was done, you know, over the phone, the old-fashioned way, when people had to actually make a phone call and do it, maybe that's a better model. But that's one for other people to, you know, try and work out.
But then the thing, if they do a phone call, then everyone would do it, wouldn't they?
That's
people
why
would use the system in the end.
Yeah, that's where it's down to the individual of the person. I think we'll have less of that, I think, here than we would in a sophisticated market like the UK, an established long-term market, or Germany. But I'm sure it will go on where people have their sick days, their 15 days, and they'll be trying to take that almost like an allowance. How to stop abuse in any country fully is pretty hard.
Exactly. But for example, if you have people relocating to Dubai, that's what we do, of course, with the Emirates business setup. And if they are thinking to get an insurance, how would the first approach be, or what would you recommend them to do the first step?
I think I would look at, you know, suggest, well, if you're coming out yourself and you're having to fund your own health insurance, is start researching it. Typically people will do it online, and be aware of the pitfalls that I'm saying about, you know, make sure it's an insurer that fulfills what you're looking for. You know, absolutely speak to brokers or insurers if you want to go direct before coming, and ask the questions that you need to have. And that's, how do you price your premium? What underwriting is required? More importantly, I think, is not what you buy right now, what happens the following year. If I claim a lot as a family, if I'm coming out with my family, how do you price it the following year? Some of them will start to do and are doing a hybrid, where if you've been okay and you're claiming less than your premium, they'll give you the medical inflation. But if you've claimed quite a bit, be it an ongoing condition, certainly, then they're going to charge you quite a bit at the following year's renewal. If you're joining a company and they're providing health insurance, often it's, we've got health insurance. Now, they could even tell you it's good health insurance, but that's very subjective as what is good. So find out, ask for the table of benefits, see what it's covered, find out what maternity limits are if you're going to plan a further family or have a family, what dental's there if that's important to you, what network can you go to, and it may well be most people perhaps won't know what hospitals and clinics are here, and ask people that are out here already. Try and get some personal thoughts of what their experience has been, and come on your channel, speak to yourselves and find out, well, what's actually required. An unbiased view. Brokers are obviously, most of them, trying to just get that client, understandably so. Whereas yourself is a bit more, well, you just be aware of these potential pitfalls and what you need to look for, rather than doing it when you come out. So the example I'm just thinking in my head just now, it's a lady, she's going to be delivering in September. She could have postponed that visit. So she's now in that dilemma. The family's coming out, turning it around, timing it with schools, and she's now going to be potentially left without insurance or having to pay a lot more.
In Dubai?
Yeah, or a lot more than she'd even assumed.
Because she has no insurance yet?
Not at the moment. So that's not an unusual example, Chris. Okay. I mean, childbirth's a natural occurrence. And that's the thing that they need to be aware of. If they're joining a small employer, then quite often they will have our question, is anyone, pregnant at the moment? And then they'd have to disclose that, and then the employer's not really aware of what the final premium would be. Larger companies, typically they'll be okay in that typical example. But if they have a chronic condition, and that's just really meant as an ongoing, so let's take hypertension, and many people have diabetes and hypertension, they will not know what's going to happen to tell them until they get here. And if their employer's scheme is that they're small and they have to fill in a health questionnaire, the employer might not be expecting to pay a higher premium, and it may well be the employer's not happy to pay that higher premium. And that's not a good starting point for joining a company. So very much research, know your own health, research the insurance, whether you've got to find it yourself or what's your employer that you're joining going to provide.
And you said the good example, she's pregnant, she's giving birth, and if she's working for a company, is she covered from then if she has an insurance that she doesn't need to go to work for a couple of months, or is it mandatory to, as soon as she gives the child comes, she has to go back to work? Or can she get fired from the company?
Most employers will just give the statutory minimum in terms of time off for maternity. And depending on the company, some ladies will build up holidays, take unpaid leave. It's a negotiation of whatever the company policy is. So it depends
on the company in the end, what they do. So it's not a mandatory, like a year or 6 months, they are not allowed to go to work.
There's a minimum what they have to provide by law, and then the company can override that and give better cover, not less cover, if it's required. And some more, shall we say, Western companies might take more of the Western policy of saying, well, you might get 6 months off or 3 months off during that. But when you're arriving, they might be going through a probation period, and it may well be that that's not allowed. And it's also important that quite often it might be the male or the female, husband or wife, that comes out with the job, and the trailing spouse doesn't have a job. They certainly need to check, does their employer provide cover for the spouse and family? If they don't, then they're looking at providing that themselves. And then they're really looking at that as an individual family, which then goes through the processes I've mentioned before. Medical application forms, which is the medical questionnaire. And they might not be aware of what that cost is, and they may not be able to afford what they would like to have for the family. So it's a boring subject, but it's an important subject to be aware of before coming out, in my opinion.
And what's the average cost for a family with 2 children? Just like a good basic insurance coverage for the for family
again,
of 4.
Depending on age, but let me just off the top of my head say
like 35,
35 male and female and a couple of kids. Let's say 6, maybe 10,000 dirhams.
10,000 dirhams.
Something
That's
like that.
A month or a year?
A year.
That's a year.
And with most insurers in the local market, you have to pay that annually up front. Some other insurers, more international, can do quarterly. There are a few that do monthly with an extra charge.
Okay. That's the thing I didn't know myself. I thought it's always yearly. So it's actually, if you think about it, a family of 4 for $2,500 a year. where do you get that in some major countries in the world, in the Western world?
Yeah, and that's not really at the top end international.
But it's
just
sti-
giving you an average
But
type lower price.
it's a like say a basic insurance for 2,500 for 4 people.
Yeah.
That's like if you, for example, you have insurance in Germany, you're self-employed, you sometimes pay a couple of hundred euros a month, maybe 6, 7, 8, 900 euro, depending on how much you earn, and that's a month.
Yeah,
12 times one person, and then you still have to pay the if your wife's maybe also self-employed, she pays separately. If she's employed, she gets covered from the company, but it gets taken from a salary in the end. So she
that's a lower mid-level price premium point. If you went more of an international insurer or top end, then you could easily double and triple that depending on what add-ons you want to have. If you want to add on dental, rough rule of thumb, if you're adding on 3,000 dirhams of dental, the premium might be about 800, 900 dirhams per person to have that as well. So the more you add on, the more the premium can be beefed up and increased. And then so the age is important, your current health status, and the network. There's 5 or 6 easily different networks stepping up the level of clinics and hospitals. And many people here, Chris, go straight to hospitals because they can. But in a more mature market, you'll go through it's called triage to an extent. You'll go through a general practitioner or a family practitioner that can deal with easily 90% of what you need. You're only then referred on to a consultant if it's something they can't deal with. We've got a different model here for most people. The lower level policy we started with, the 700, 600 dirham one, that's through a GP or a general practitioner first. And then you need a referral from them to go to a specialist. So there's quite a lot of different models within this one healthcare insurance market. And that's that bit about be aware. If you're paying a lot less, there's a reason for it. There are differences in competitiveness of insurers and appetite for business. Certain age groups, they might be more keen. Certain nationalities, they might be more. So, because different nationalities can claim differently.
Okay.
And there are some insurers out here that underwrite on nationality.
Yeah.
So Americans, for example, tend to claim more than British, and British will claim more than some other nationalities. So it's quite a science for some insurers, depending on which insurer you're dealing with.
And what's do you know like the average waiting time? Because a couple of years ago I had to do an X-ray, and I also had a good insurance. I think it was Allianz. Premium with all hospitals, but it took I think about 3 or 4 months to get the appointment, and every time I called the doctor and the insurance said, we're waiting for the insurance to confirm, and the doctor said, and when I called the insurance, they're waiting for the doctor. So I was calling all the time, sending emails, and I went to the doctor again 2 times, and it took 3-4 months. Is that normally? Is that how they do it sometimes, or just maybe individual?
When you're telling me that, Chris, because we're spoilt here, or we're looked after well here. That it's pretty easy to get, as long as it's required and medically necessary to have the MRI or the X-ray. X-ray is typically the first point.
Was it MRT actually? Yeah.
Right.
X-ray I had easy, and the MRT took long because when you have it in Germany, it takes also a few weeks to get the MRT, but the appointment is already confirmed quickly. Right. So that's why I had the difference of why it takes so long, and I have to run after to get the confirmation.
If you had a similar situation today, and you've got a network where you can go to, some of the larger hospitals, you could go and get a consultation probably 99 times out of 100 on the day. And the approval, if it's medically necessary for that diagnostic test, be it a lab or an lab, but it could be done on the day, maybe the following day.
Wow.
Providing the reports are substantial and the insurer is happy that they're going to give approval.
Okay.
You will have to an extent, the same as yourself, the healthcare facility might be saying they're waiting on pre-approval from their third-party administrator, which is a different model.
That could have been,
more often than not, the third-party administrator or the insurance company will be waiting on more information from the healthcare facility to medically justify it, because there's quite a lot of money made in these diagnostic tests for the diagnostic centre or the hospital that's providing them. So it is a bit of I'm going to say it's a game. It's about the client, my patient needs it. The insurer's going, I'm trying to make money, I don't want to pay for it. Is it really required? And the member doesn't really get to see that. So sometimes the delays will be nothing like your 4 months. But there will be maybe, I'm talking hours or possibly a day waiting on that wrangling.
Okay, that's not okay.
So it's very different.
It wasn't actually needed. Like it wasn't like mandatory. I didn't have anything. Just my personal trainer said to have a checkup. So that's probably the doctor that tried to do the best. I think that was the reason. So in the end, like you mentioned, we have a very good here. We have everything. We don't need to do things sometimes. And then when you wait a bit longer, even if you ordering food, for example, and the delivery driver doesn't come after 25 minutes, you already make a complaint because you're used to it having it in 10 minutes. So it's the same case.
It's the same sort of concept that we are looked after well, shall we call it here,
and you get used to this
and you get
high
used to
standard
that level, the level of support and demanding. So it's nice to have it in some respects, but the more that it's used, the healthcare facilities using the healthcare insurance, the premiums will keep going up. And I think it's more onerous for individuals, and they really need to be careful what they buy and what they take out, because they are buying something. Small companies, I mean, are not all good with cash flow, so they don't particularly want a high renewal. And you can change insurer, but how is the health of these people that you're moving across? Are they going to have a problem? So it is an important choice to try and get the right insurer and the right, advice when you're taking it out to start with. Sometimes it's too late when the problems have arisen. People buy a car, they get it checked out, because they can touch it and they can feel it. You can't feel a bit of medical insurance paper, and they'll do a lot more checking. People, if they're getting LASIK done in their eyes, I know that they'll check the doctor or the ophthalmologist or whoever's doing it, and they'll see how many times have they done this, what's the success, but they don't check the doctor that's going to do something for them to the same extent. And that's just the way we have it. People are naive and inexperienced, but they need to research what they're doing when they can. Emergencies is a different story here. Fix me now.
Yeah. And do you provide the insurance for everyone? Companies, individual families, people from different countries, or do you just handle?
I would summarize it in one word: it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, everyone.
So you can support anyone anywhere in the world. Companies, if they are contacting you, for example, you can set up all the insurance. You can negotiate with them. So it's all no issues. Do you also do other insurances or just the health insurance?
People within the company absolutely will deal with other insurances, professional indemnity, professional liability, home contents. Obviously, the floods were recent. My last advert on the radio was about, if you'll cover yourself for floods, also gives you alternative accommodation. And as always, just after a flood that we had or a lot of rain, people will, I better take insurance out, because it's not exciting. So people
the housing insurance.
So contents insurance or buildings insurance if they own the property. The landlord should have buildings insurance. That's their problem typically.
Yeah, but if there's their own landlord, the owner, do most of them already have insurance, or did you see an increase in the requests after the floods?
After the floods, there'll definitely be increases, and that's where obviously great companies like insurancemarket.ie will be the sort of ones that will be. I'm sure the phones are ringing off the hook and getting leads coming in.
But do you think they have it easy to get a compensation from the insurance company, or would they need like a adjuster company to guide them and to claim the money from
certainly in the corporate side, Chris? They might need a loss adjuster to help them more often than not in terms of what they're going to get. Individuals, I had a call yesterday from a friend of mine whose wife, won't mention the insurer, but his wife's car had a tree fall on the car, and trying to get the insurance company to even answer the phone is a challenge. And his call to me was, do you know anyone in this particular insurance company? And that's what's going on. So I'm sure a lot of insurers are inundated with claims at the moment. So there will be, understandably, it's unprecedented, there'll be delays in getting information out to their policyholders.
But how would the individual know that there's like a loss adjuster, that they can contact them to claim it from the insurance? Most of them don't know about this.
They won't know. I mean, it's not my field. I mean, the loss adjuster is more for the corporate side. For individuals, my experience is contact the insurance company and get the claim.
But if they can't get anything and they don't know what to do, they have to get a lawyer, or
have to do that, or get the insurance authority and just say, listen, we're not able to even contact the insurer. What can I do? Go to the regulator. There's good regulation here. Because if they've got a policy, a tree has hit a car, They're carless, probably. I don't imagine they're driving around. They need to get their claim covered, ideally, and get that money paid out as quickly as possible to find an alternative drive. It may well be the insurance policy has a higher drive available under it or within it.
Yeah.
But if they can't get hold of the insurance company, they can't instigate that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's not my area, but I'm sure there's a lot of like a swan. Insurers are looking good, but there's a lot of running around trying to sort out the issues that the amount of claims that they will have. And that's the nature of insurance.
Yeah, true. Would you recommend people to have covered all insurances? For example, in Germany we have the health insurance, we have the personal insurance, we have the housing insurance, we have glass insurance, we have the mobile insurance, we have the life insurance, we have pension insurance. We have, I don't know how many insurance we have. We cover with everything in the end. But do they have such aspects in the UAE as well? Is something mandatory to have insurance, or is
in
it
terms of the individual? No, you don't have to have the contents or buildings. You do have to have car insurance. That's mandatory.
Car insurance is mandatory.
Car insurance is mandatory. But the other levels of insurance, apart from the employer, or if you're employing yourself or self-employed or a golden visa, you have to provide the health cover. Other than that, it's optional. There's not really the sophisticated market of all these policies where you could get your car, your contents, your buildings, your phone insurance all in one yet. I mean, it's just really hitting the UK now, so it's not here yet. It will probably come, Chris.
Okay,
just for ease of remembering what insurance you've got, because if you've got different renewal dates, with the best will in the world, I sympathise with insurers and brokers where, let's say, a client's paying, could easily be just 800 dirhams premium for contents insurance. The broker might make 120 dirhams on that.
Well, but, every year, and he has like say 100,000, 2,000 clients.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
It adds up, but it's if the client isn't responding to an email, do they make a phone call and say your insurance is running out? I don't think every broker or every insurer will do that. We're still in that email world, and there will be. I'm saying this example because it's happened to me where I forgot to renew my contents insurance previously. So it's just keeping aware of what you've got. There's not the same chase-up facility as you'd have perhaps in other areas.
And your company, do they also provide all insurances? If a client is watching us now on YouTube and they want to contact you could then help out with your...
Yeah, sure. We would. If it's not myself, I would pass it on to some good people internally that would deal with their inquiry, and be that for companies corporately. I mean, professional indemnity is quite common out here. A lot of contracts that companies win require professional indemnity, professional liability rather. For insurance, and then they need to take out a certain level of cover, a minimum level, and that's sometimes when they take it out, they hadn't taken it out before. So sometimes there's mandatory cover required for companies when they win business.
And do you, like, if a client will contact you now, Steve, do you have a call with them, WhatsApp, or if they even in the UAE, would you always visit them, or is it just depending on the client?
Depending on the client, depending on the case. I mean, tomorrow morning, for example, there's a referral from a friend of mine. Just a Scottish couple moving to the UAE, and I quite like the idea of just meeting somebody at the start. I always take the view every single meeting can lead somewhere, and if you help somebody, particularly here at the start, I think it's reciprocity, and minimum will typically do is a phone call or a WhatsApp. WhatsApp maybe moves into a phone call and take it from there, and then try and steer them in the direction that I think's right for them, because I know it's daunting.
And since now you've been here 18 years, as you mentioned,
it's flown by. Yeah,
it's flown by. But could you live back in Scotland?
I mean, I think the weather is something. I'm not too keen on the politics and what's going on there. I know that's a very different subject, but the way it's going is not something that being able to say what you want, freedom of speech is dropping a little bit, shall we say? But the weather is just with legs like I've got, Chris, I need to be able to wear shorts now and again, and that doesn't happen in Scotland. So, don't know where I'll end up, but probably here for another 10 years or so. It's a nice and lovely place to stay.
But can people retire here? Like, because you hear people asking sometimes, or they read on the Facebook, on Google, like after you're in the retirement age, like 65, you have to go back to the home country. Is that true?
No, people can retire now.
Yeah,
they can buy a property and make this their retirement home. Again, they'll be requiring medical insurance, certainly in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. So it's very important that they have cover in place. There's one or two top-up facilities out there that people can take If they're British, that's hopefully coming soon, I've heard, where they can take out a sort of robust inpatient policy and protect them on that basis, and take out a basic policy just to comply with the law, which is important that people do. And then, you know, they're pretty robust going forward, but they do have to be making a plan for the healthcare, because that they might get great financial advice. They've got a pot of money, they've got income coming in, and then a serious illness happens or a cancer, whatever that may be, then they might have to reassess. So check what they've got, you know, take it out early when they're fit and healthy when they can, and have something in place. But I think that from what I see, people are wanting to stay here and retire here if they've got enough financial backing to do so. Again, what's not to like?
Of course, if you've been here, experienced it, you see the difference. But do you think more people, or in the say above age of 60, 65, 55, they're more moving here to the UAE compared to Malta, to Portugal, to Spain, as a lot of Germans and UK nationalities, they always move to these countries to retire. But do you think there's more people moving here now?
I would go along with you. Certainly my evidence would be more people moving to Spain, etc., in that sort of environment. But here now, there's quite a lot of families will have younger children here, and the parents, maybe the kids are out, the grandkids are out here as well. So you'll find that family unit from grandparents down to children, down to grandchildren being here. I've quite often come across that where they're bringing out the grandparents, which if you're an employee, you can sponsor grandparents as well. So you can get to stay here through that model. And with obviously golden visa and silver visas now, it's becoming for certain people easier to be more permanent and have more roots here. So I think it's only going to increase. And as the healthcare market becomes more sophisticated and mature, I think we'll find more solutions. I think there's gaps required for certainly retirees to get cover that's more robust and more sustainable for them.
Yeah, I can think so. But the thing is, do you think it's for people in the higher age, what's like the advantage of retiring in the UAE? But if you compare to Spain, the cost would be more higher here, or not, compared to Spain?
I suppose it depends on where you're staying.
Where you're staying, yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
you go to Ras Al Khaimah, for example, you can find some decent...
yeah, big difference. Where medical insurance isn't mandatory, but you're still exposed if you don't have the financial backing to look after a major illness. So you either have, insurance is about protecting a risk that you really don't have the cash to cover. So if that's the case, then if you're well off, absolutely fine. You don't have to do the insurance if you don't want currently. But as we've said earlier, it's tipped to start 1st of January that it's required as well.